Recording in progress.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How you doing?
Doing well, doing
Uh,
well. A lot of news in the prop firm space in the last 2 weeks,
yes.
you
Uh,
know?
Specifically, share with us your takeaways, because what's coming to my mind obviously is the Apex changes, huge end of day.
Yeah, A Apex, and I think they've been driven by competition. So rule changes. But there's some rules that I'm not convinced it's for the benefit of the trader. The fact that you could trading from 8 days to five is good. However, a trading day doesn't count unless it's $250.
Yep.
Whereas when you had the 8 days, three of them could be 50. You could flip, you could just flip those days when you had the
Five.
eight.
Yeah, at least the ones, my legacy ones, it's 5 days of at least 50 of the eight.
Yeah, right. So in that sense, again, you're forcing people to trade, higher than what perhaps they're comfortable with.
Yep.
Um, it's funny because I had mentioned, hey, if I were doing 200 a day, I'm happy. Well, 200 a day will count for a trading day. So I'm
You
like,
know,
okay.
I really thought of you when I processed that information also. And and I had to think about it a little bit. And I'm like, the real magic is going to be okay. They've made it down to 5 days instead of eight. And I mean, obviously, if we're trading two micros and regularly getting, $200, say you got three or four good trades, the transition would be, hey, go to three micros, small enough to where it has essentially zero impact on your emotions. And that's how we grow anyway. Hey, lock into where you're comfortable. Take those small losses, and if you're losing with two micros, and it's not even that big of a loss, really. When hey, it's breaking below my moving average or where it's no longer an A plus setup. Now it's like 50-50. It's like I'm just going to get out. Um, but here's where I was really thinking of you. It's like, if I'm not comfortable, I can't get that good setup to get me over that. If I'm like locked in at
Yeah,
225 and I need
yeah,
251, am I willing to walk away?
yeah.
Because I got, who cares if it's 8 days of, you know, 5 days at 250, 3 days at 200 is a good payout. Okay, let's say it takes you 12 days to
Right.
get 5 days of 250. And the rest of those, you just don't feel it. You're able to get in, maybe get 50. That's good money because
Oh
nothing has
yeah.
changed over the duration of a
Right.
month. As long as
Right.
we have the discipline to not allow these losing trades to ruin 3 days of profits.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do like the end of day.
And today's
Um,
huge.
yes, that is huge. So here's what I looked at, and here's something I did. So last week, um, instead of going for the 50K, I went 25. Here's the reason why. So drawdown was 1,000 on end of day. Profit was 1,500.
I hope I thought that it was a 500 DLL on the 25K.
Well, it is,
But
but
end of day, 1,000. Yes.
right. So yeah. So now I do like the DLL because you're done for the day once you reach that. So that avoids tilting,
Yep.
right? So I thought, okay, you got that built in because I was using always the risk management anyway. However, if you felt so inclined, you could change it, right? You start out and
Yeah.
you say, oh
Yeah.
no, I got this one
Yeah.
more time,
Yeah. Yeah.
However, now that it's built in, you can't change that. You're done for the day.
Yeah.
Gives you a pause. So then I looked at it and I said, well, I only have to do 1,500 instead of on the 50K, do the 3,000. So I passed three 25Ks on Friday.
Because
Yeah.
you're 500. I'm
Yep.
repeating what I think I'm hearing you saying.
Yes.
Because I like your approach. So the 500 daily loss limit, that's your
Yeah.
non-negotiable risk anyway. You're like, you know
Yeah.
what? I need to walk away.
Right.
And I still got, you still got 500 left, the next day.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Right.
so you're not
Yeah.
going to tilt in that one day and
Uh-huh.
then able to come back. So you're like, so the 25K is you're trading like you did your 50K, but you only have to go
Yeah.
to 1,500. And that daily loss limit does not put a
Uh-huh.
limitation. It actually is a constraint that you desire
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
Okay.
So the other thing, and it's funny because I've seen responses where people are complaining now, you can only have six payouts and then the account is gone.
That's not true though.
Well,
And
huh,
the
go ahead.
reason, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just going to say it says so there's six payouts max, and then you're out. But what was funny is the people's comments, they were upset, and I'm thinking, I don't comment, but I thought, so how many of you have ever gotten to six payouts on one account?
I know.
So why
Connecticut.
why are you complaining? You haven't gotten there yet anyway. And then you look at return on investment. If you had one account and you got to six payouts, it's more than paid for itself.
That's right. You
Just
got 20 others. You got 19
yeah,
others that are
right.
not going to follow that, that same
Yeah.
decision.
So I was kind of laughing because I was like, so let me get this straight. You're upset for something you've never even done, but just the simple fact they said after the six. Now the nice part is the legacy accounts. You're under the old rules, so you don't have that. So
Yeah.
that's when I looked at it. I said, well, look, on the 25K, if I only have to hit 1,500, okay, the max payout is 1,000 each time instead of which they changed it now anyway, to 1,500 on the 50K on the first one, the first withdrawal.
Oh, is it
It's
1,500 on the first withdrawal for the 50K?
Yes, and it
Okay.
progressively gets more, and then you're getting up to the higher numbers. But I was like, on the 25K, it's 1,000 each time, limit six. And I was like, okay, well, I haven't gotten to six payouts yet on an account anyway.
No,
So
6,000 accumulated payouts over
yes,
125K accounts, a very good investment.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you just do that. You can get 20 accounts. So what are you complaining about? So
20,
yeah,
yeah, 20
so
times 6,000, that's a 120,000 you can make off 25K
right,
accounts. I don't know where people are
yes.
complaining.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, oh, come on, give me a break. But
Yeah.
some people are just not satisfying. But overall, I do think they've made some positive. The fact that the 5-to-1 ratio on risk to reward is gone. The consistency is gone. You can now make instead of 30%, 50%,
Yeah.
you know, in a day. So to me, I just looked at it overall and I said, it's a win, I think, for traders. I think they're definitely moving in the right direction.
Hi, Michelle. And I've got my biggest complaint,
Hello.
uh,
Okay.
and I'm gonna share that with you, but I want to get Michelle completely caught up with exactly what we're talking about. She just joined us. And so what we started our conversation about, Michelle, was prop firm changes that have kind of come out
hmm
since we were together last. Specifically, Anthony is giving us some very great details on the Apex changes. That's really the big change. And so Apex now, I'm coming in and out. Sorry about that. Apex now offers the end of day. Matter of fact, you get a new evaluation account with them effective almost 2 weeks ago. Um, you're in the new models. You can choose intraday or end of day. Intraday's a little cheaper premium, and it's pretty much similar to the old with more restrictions. You know, from an evaluation perspective, because now you've got a daily loss limit. Um, and that's about it, really. There's no
Mhm.
benefit. You a little cheaper to go in the traditional intraday with Apex than the end of day. I think you pay with their current codes right now still around the $19 for a 20 or 16 something for a 25K, where it might
Yeah,
be like 20 or 19 or 20
20
for the end of day, just a few dollars difference.
end of day is 29, so it's $10 more.
Is it 29 for the 25K?
Yes, but how many times have we had to consider unrealized gains? That's one of the reasons why I like the end of day.
End of day is hands down um, more comfortable. And I think Michelle, I think you were with us in the conversation. If it wasn't 2 weeks ago, it was 4 weeks ago when we really spent a lot of time breaking
Yeah.
down the difference between intraday and end of day. So,
Yeah, we talked a lot about blue ski and or blue sky, however you say it, and why that
yep,
might have been a good one. And I'm glad to hear y'all talking about that because my husband was talking about it yesterday or whatever, and so he thought he kind of agrees with Anthony in that he thought it was probably a good move for traders overall. When you put all the tit for tat, it really wasn't that much more expensive, he didn't think, and he
yeah,
felt like maybe there were more gains in this change. And so,
yeah,
yeah, I was hoping y'all would be talking about this.
yeah. I'm going to give you my 2 cents, and it's going to kind of throw you for a loop. But I don't think they did themselves much of a favor. Um, the I'm coming in and out. I apologize. That's got to make you guys go cross-eyed.
Here, we'll go cross-eyed. Ugh.
It's making me go cross-eyed. I'll just have to minimize my screen. Um, the here's where it frustrates me a little, or it keeps me just as interested in Blue Ski, because Blue Ski went through a lot of their changes to where they really, I like them because they did away with end of day drawdown in both the evaluation and their Blue Live. That's still a great fail-safe. When we make it to PA in Apex, that DLL is absolutely a non-issue for me. Matter of fact, love it. Highly recommend it. Should never break a DLL. But what I don't like about Apex now is they still offer this 1 day to pass, but now you got a $500 DLL on a 25K. You got 2,000 on 150K and a 1,000 on the 50K. So they are pocketing a lot of money on the evaluations. People are trying to pass in 1 day and they're getting stopped because of the DLL, or at least Jake's realizing now. I go right into Apex on a 25 or 50K and I'll load up on that first day. But this is when the subscription remained. And so I will load up. I don't care about a DLL. For a $19 account, I'm that person. My stop loss is the maximum loss limit, and I'm going for like a 1-to-1 target. All I need is one win. Like on a 25K, I'm going for around $800. On a 50K, I'm going for around 1,500. On day one. 50K, I'm going for 150K, I'm going for around 3,000 because then I'm tracking on my spreadsheet my subscriptions, how many trading days. So now I really only need like $50 in a 25K. Don't even need $50, and I'm going to pass that evaluation blindfolded. So I copy trade it. There's no stress. I actually ignore the accounts and forget them. So, but now, and it's not an issue with the 25K as much as it is the 150K, which is my bread and butter. I love the 150K accounts because it does take 9,000 to pass the eval, but only 5,000 on the PA. So that 1-to-1 ratio of drawdown to payout on the 150K, that's why I like the 150Ks. And without a daily drawdown, I could still get into a 150K for, $50. And my only risk would be $50 the first 1 or 2 days of the subscription. If I can't get my target, or that one trade in on the first 2 trading days, well, then I just keep going. A lot of times I will blow it. That's the risk. I'm willing to risk the $50 at the beginning of a subscription. So then I've only got, like 4 or 5 thousand to spread out over 20 other trading days. So there's just zero stress to pass that evaluation before the subscription comes up, because those subscriptions were like 50%. They were expensive if you renewed a subscription. You always waited. So there's no change with their new policy where the subscriptions no longer exist. You have 1 month of trading days. They say 30 days, but no, you got 20 trading days or 21.
That's the
Um,
drawdown to that. It is that no
Now
matter
you
what
have to
you're,
slow down on the evaluations. You're going to blow a lot more evaluation accounts if
yeah.
you load up to try to pass in that one day,
Well, the problem is that in 30 days it goes away.
and it goes away.
So,
So you have to force it. If you have a couple bad
yes.
days, next thing you know,
Uh,
you still have the full way to go, and you've only got 10 trading days left. So then you start going a little bit bigger.
yep. Yeah, and I think that's what they're counting on is
They're making a lot of money off of the DLL in the evaluations.
yes.
If this would be a um, perfect prop firm, in my opinion, if they left the evaluations the way they were. Pay a little bit more for an in a day. Absolutely, be happy for that. But
Right.
don't put that DLL in there and then tell me I got one day to pass.
Yeah, right, right. I know. Well, they're speaking out of both sides of their mouths.
Yeah,
You know, part of that is they want responsible traders long
yeah,
term. However, they set you up to create. Now, I've said that before. They entice you, dangle the carrot in front of you that, oh, I can pass in one day.
yeah, yeah.
You
And they
know,
make they make a lot of money now. Now, here's what I'm kind of growing through. I'm like, okay, they've changed the rules a little bit. How do I take advantage of that? And so on the evaluations now, that first couple trades early in the subscription, like
yeah,
first couple days, they're actually going to be small, just like a PA account. On that day, that like a 50K, hey, I'm up 300 because it's end of day. Now I've got 1,300 instead of the 1,000 for the DLL. I make another 200. Now I've got 1,500 before I hit my DLL, not 1,000, because it's the end of day. So you got to build that cushion on day one or day two. Then you wait for that A plus setup. On the day that you have the cushion, then you can kind of go with a larger size.
yeah,
So within the first couple days, as long as you got a good sense of what price structure is doing today, you're patient to wait for those pullbacks, and then you get that buffer built in, and then if that same day, if you can get into another good setup, then you can kind of exploit it. That's my model now for the evaluations. 'Cause I don't like taking a whole month to pass an evaluation.
yeah.
And maybe that's um, I should say I don't like to do that. I don't do that on all accounts. I take that back. I've got the majority of accounts that, hey, I'm just not even worried about them. As long as I'm consistently profitable, they're getting closer to that profit before the subscription, I'm good to go. So I've got a few accounts in the background where I don't even worry about them. But I've always got one or two that I'm wanting to spread out. I don't want to pay the monthly PA fee, all on the same day for 5, 6 accounts either. I like to spread out when I pass the evaluations. Um, but Blue Ski, the constraint they have is you can only have 5. So I've got my 5 with Blue Ski I've had for a while. I really can't add anymore. So then it forces me to go back to Apex to get those other accounts. And the difference is that first time to pass an evaluation with Apex, that DLL, it does change how you're going to attack that
Yeah.
evaluation. Where with Bluesky, um, same price. Right now they continue their madness sale, so it's $33 to get into a 50K. Where with Apex, I think it's like 29.55. So very, very similar price structure. And then even when you with that launch plan in Bluesky, when you go to Blue Live, you still have to pay that $99. Well, you have the same thing in Apex. So they're identical, but Bluesky comes out on top because they don't have the DLL,
Hmm.
in
Yeah.
their evaluation phase. That's the only difference. But once you got five, you just trade them as an adult. You're very disciplined and walk away. Um, and so I actually will have Bluesky on my center monitor and copy trade those five. And then on my left monitor, I've got my Apex lead account with my copy trader from Ninja going. And so I only have two accounts that I'm trading at any given time. And I've also found that to be ideal. My mind can handle, and then I do not trade them identical. And I matter of fact, like this week, Monday, excellent with Bluesky, I think 425 on all five accounts. Um, and I think I was Monday, I was only like 200 on Apex. Okay, not a bad day, when you talk 20 accounts total, but then I turn around Tuesday, I'm down on Bluesky. I took 2 days of losses, frustrated me. I got some of that back today, but I lost more than I should have. I almost tilted. I'm like, not gonna. Um, but
Yeah.
but Apex, I was positive 300, on 15
Uh-huh.
accounts. So that diversity and not, being able to tilt everything at once really helps too. But that's side by side Bluesky and Apex. And I think it's really valuable to understand that. You
Yeah.
know,
So Apex also announced uh, no delays in payouts. You didn't have to send. You remember at one time you had to actually send charts and explain your strategy.
I've done that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And they said no more of that. It's all automated now, so you don't have to wait for payouts, is what they're
We'll see.
saying.
We'll see.
Yeah, I
And then
know.
there,
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too. Well, what
and
they're
then
trying
here's
to
the
do,
reason I say that is I've got
yeah.
my 150 PA with Apex and I've had for a while.
Uh,
And 26 February passed payout, requested a payout, did get approved. That was on a Friday. Didn't even get it approved until the following Thursday.
really?
And I left it alone,
Uh-huh.
And then once it got approved, I got in there, got $100, started my one of 8 days.
Yeah.
Well, 8 days later, I passed, I got a payout again. And I finished on a Monday. And it was Thursday after the market closed before it was approved. And the dashboard is pretty cool. It does list violations, shows them. So
Yeah, ahead of time. Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, you come out with this, it's the beta version on there, but I'm like, why is it taking, 4 trading days for you guys to still approve? Of course, this is a legacy account.
Yeah. Right.
It's the legacy account, but it's like 4 or 5 days before they even approve it. So I don't even once I get when I don't take payout where I leave my 500 buffer in there from the payout, then because I ended up not being able to get up to 2750 in the 8 days. So I went in and I take the maximum payouts. I have still got 4500 in there. I got 8 days to get that back to get to where I don't have a trailing drawdown anymore, even though it's static. It's still locked in at 150 and 100, but the idea you're down 500. But anyway, they're on the legacy account. Even since they've updated their dashboards and everything, they're still 4 and 5 days before they even approve anything.
Maybe
Uh,
it's a different group looking at it. It's the old legacy group. There's
it's
actually people
possible.
look.
I'm
Yeah, there are
hoping.
people looking at it.
I'm
And
hoping.
well, think about it. That under the new system, they limit now your max payout. So under the legacy, though, after how many payouts, and then there's no limit. I don't know because I haven't had that many, but I know
Yeah, I want to say, 8.
then you can take it all out if you
You
want. There's
you
no
take it
limit
all
at
out if
that
you
point.
want, and then yeah, keep going. So yeah,
Right. So there is no limit. So maybe for that reason, I'm surprised that there's still, so it's really two sets of rules, the legacy rules as well as the new program.
yeah.
So, so that's something too. If you're trading both, you've got to keep that in mind.
You do.
Why do you think they changed it at this point? Just because they saw it as a moneymaker for them, or were they getting a lot of complaints, or the competition was giving other options, and so they had to get on board, or what do you think happened?
I think all of the above.
All of it. Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. I find it very interesting that, Bluesky is not one of those prop firms that you see all over YouTube, big advertising, this or that, but I love them because the only caveat I have with them is I have to be done by 7 in the morning, my time, which is 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. But on those days where a lot of times I am, but then I do a payout request on that day because you can do with payout every day with Bluesky. And
Right.
so with my 15-minute um, upper lower limit, once that's established and the market's given me some confidence in what direction it wants to go, when that happens and I can get in and get out of a trade and have at least $250 before an hour and a half after the market opens, you put a payout in Bluesky and it's approved that day and your account's ready to go the next day. And that it is a daily payout. Um, so that's what I really like there. But if it tends to go sideways for the first hour and a half, and I find myself in a trade and that time frame rolls around, well, then I just hold on to it. And I've had sometimes go a couple days, and it had actually instead of a $250 payout, it might be 900. I've had some of those. And I just wait until that morning when I am done, in that first hour and a half. But their payout is it's spectacular. I mean, it really is. You put it in that day, and then I use Gusto instead of Rise, and I get notification from Gusto. It's in there, and it sits over in Gusto 5 days. That's the thing is the date will populate over there. I don't get that money until that date, and it's usually about 5 business days. But it's out of the account. I know exactly what I've got, and I'm able to trade the very next day. With Apex, um, until I can until I'm on the accounts where I don't have maximum, I've not hit the maximum withdrawal amount. So I take all that I can because it's paying for it's well, I'm pocketing that money. I'm taking that money off the table. I will risk I make myself a tighter because your DLL is not impacted by a payout in Apex. Your end of day is not impacted. Um, it's just instead of having 5,000, maximum drawdown remaining, you've only got 4,500. But when you look at the new models, and that should never matter anyway. Good grief, if even with the new models, 4,500, well, I can't tilt, if I apply the new model DLL,
Right.
into. And another thing, it is true because on this account here, which early February, I had a terrible drawdown on this one account, almost tilted. Shame on me, but I did never break the 30% rule on a single trade. So I went well down, like I was down, I want to say 4,600. That's how crazy it got. And I got it back to a $1,200 profitable on that same day. Um, but not one single trade was greater than 30% of the account balance or the drawdown, but the total of the day was. So the DLL would have ruined the day but the 30% rule um, really did keep me. It caused me to at least stop and regroup, and I was able to get back in there. But you don't have a 30% rule anymore, but you have a DLL. So, but that's a great conversation. And that is a big change because the end of the day is it's really positive on these days where we have, well, it can be positive, but when you got good direction, good momentum,
Yeah.
because this year has been very interesting. This is where we're going to kind of go into um, market structure a little bit, and we'll kind of look at some charts. But this year's been interesting to me, and you kind of touched on it. I want to say 2 weeks ago, Anthony, a little bit. It's like that power hour in particular. It's like don't know what direction it's going to go. Um, I want to say the last couple years, part of my strategy was, hey, if it is continuing pretty bullish majority of the session, I just I could count on a roll back down towards VWAP or a strong push back up towards VWAP in that last hour. Market kind of comes back into balance. This year, 2026, I can no longer do that. Time and time again, we just see it may not even be big, large candles, but we just continue to grind. If it's bullish, it continues to grind bullish. You might get that slight rollback into the center or into balance, but sometimes it's after the US market closes. It's that last hour, between 4 and 5 Eastern Standard Time, or just the last 10, 15 minutes. And now it's gambling. You can't even count on that. So I've actually had to go back to my trading plan. I no longer count on, that return back into the center, back towards VWAP, towards the end of the session. It's not doing it. Today was the exception, but it happened so much earlier in the New York session. We had that same exact price behavior that we've had the last few days. 15 minutes, it looks bearish. Right below the 15 minutes, like yesterday, it was bouncing off the VWAP. Today, there was a hammer. You could not get any follow through on a 5-minute candle below the lower limit of the 15-minute. Exact same thing as yesterday. Exact same thing as Friday. And so around 45 minutes after the market opened, finally, support was identified a little bit below the lower limit of the 15, and then it just continued bullish last Friday, Monday, bullish all the way to the end of the session. Today was a repeat of yesterday. However, early in the session, boom, she dropped and come all the way back down through. And we just have not had these type of range days in quite a while, where it's nothing but bullish. And then all of a sudden you get that 50-point candle that comes in and ruins your day if you're short. We have not had that this year. And I share all that because last week we talked a lot about ticks. And I kind of want to highlight. I want to see how that experience has been for you, Anthony. If you've had a chance to do that, or if you're like, no, not interested. Because I wanted to spend a little bit of time on another reason why it is very powerful when it comes to risk management. Because the VWAP, there's two things that we can learn from it that we've not really talked about in the past. One is there's really no other indicator out there. This is kind of, I'm going to go on a limb. You could argue this. But when it comes down to it, is there an indicator out there that any more clearly lets us know trend than a VWAP? And what I mean by that is you're not going to make entries and exit criteria based on VWAP alone. But if that VWAP is ever so slightly pointing up, you know that there's more buying pressure than selling pressure. If that VWAP is ever so slightly pointing down, you know that there's more selling pressure than there is buying pressure. We can't use that for entry exit by itself, but to just zoom out, look at the VWAP, to include your deviation bands, because your bands are mirrors of the actual VWAP. So if the VWAP is slightly pointing up, then your deviation bands are slightly pulling up. That alone says, okay, my highest probability for success with a VWAP that is slightly pointing up is I need to enter longs and longs only on pullbacks. Obviously, you can short, coming back down, but I'm telling you, like this year, it doesn't pay to counter trend trade until we get that clear reversal with confirmation and confluence. I mean, that does happen. That is still happening, but price is pulling back and bouncing off of a deviation of VWAP. It's bouncing off of our slower moving EMAs and continuing in the same direction for a large part of the session. Now, Globex a little bit more rangy. You're above VWAP, below VWAP, above VWAP, below VWAP in the Globex. So take the time in the session, via Globex or US is very important here. But everything is applicable. And when we zoom in to see exactly what price is doing, like on these ticks, keeping our larger time frame, we've got to keep that in our peripheral vision. That, like me, it's that 5 minute on my right monitor. That's the bigger context. But VWAP and the bands are all identical on a 5 minute as they are on a 15, as they are on a 1,000 tick. 2,000 tick, 3,000 tick, they're all identical. But big takeaway here is, do you ever just, when you sit down at your monitor and want to figure out, okay, what's price doing? Do you ever really look at, because again, a micro bearish trend, when we're zoomed in, can be very tempting to get into when the overall trend is very bullish. And that's kind of what I want to highlight here. So if we sit down, we're assessing what's going on, we're waiting for that first 30 minutes, because I use a 15-minute, but you got to realize that 15 minutes just establishes some key price levels, but it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes before the market ever really gives you that clarity of what it's going to do relative to that 15-minute limit. Does that make sense? So you get 3 5-minute candles, but then you start getting some wicks. 5-minute candle wick, another 5-minute candle goes sideways. 5-minute candle goes a little bit above that lower limit, but wicks down, it goes sideways. And it's about 45 minutes to an hour before you get the market settles down and it gives us a direction. Very, 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 very important. But let me go ahead and share my screen now. Any questions on what I've said? Because that's what I want to narrow down today's focus. And again, Anthony, I want you to kind of talk to us about your tick experience. But in keeping with that theme, I wanted to stress the importance of, do you ever look at VWAP as a trend indicator? Because I believe that is the most powerful trend indicator we have. Now, our entry and exit is going to be based on what is your current entry and exit strategy. For me, you hear me over and over again, I'm looking from that support or resistance, but I'm looking for that break up and through or down and through, with the 5 EMA being on the right side of the 21 EMA. And now correlating those two, where am I at relating specific to those VWAP, deviation bands. I'm finding the my slower moving 21 EMA a lot of times may mirror or provide the opposite support or resistance from a deviation band. Uh, I need to share the screen to kind of go over that, but any questions on that? And I'll share my screen now, and then Anthony, I'd love for you to just take over and tell us about what you think of ticks, because a lot of times it takes 2 to 3 tries to even before you become interested in it, because it
I don't
can.
have a I don't have a question about that, but I do have a question. You said something about you over on your right screen, you had like the 5 minute chart. And so I'm just curious from both of you, how many screens do you have up and how many charts do you have up at one given time?
Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, okay. So for me, using TradingView, I actually have 8. You can break it into different screens. However, they have different focuses that I'm looking at. So for instance, I have
Mhm.
one screen where I can track 5 minute, 1 hour, and 4 hour. I can see
Right.
all 3 of those on one screen. So again, what I'm looking for is the consistency of direction. As I think I've
Right.
said before, is if you're focused in a 1-3 trading, are you really looking at the last 15 minutes to an hour, 4 hours? For me, I found I wasn't doing that. So if any time I got caught off guard, like how, trying to establish a trend, I had to really zoom out further back. I think it's like Jake said. So if I'm in a bullish momentum and all of a sudden I see a bearish candle pop up, for me, I need to see 3 bearish candles in a row before I think, okay, there's a reversal.
Right.
One candle, not a big deal. I don't care how far down it goes. I'm not going to chase it because we have seen, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I've seen a 50 point candle and I'm thinking, oh wow, the train's left the station without me. I just got to jump in there and get a piece of it, only to find out it reverses. Also, I'm big, as you guys know it, really studying the candle and seeing what's going on. It starts off bearish, and by the time that candle is finished printing, it's bullish. So again, those are things, unless I'm in front of the screen, I don't know that because if you go back and look, you didn't realize it started out one direction and finished a different. Um, I do have Jake's set up on one of my charts as well. So I have different indicators. And so what I'm really looking for in those is the consistency and confluence just to, again, um, establish trend. Now in Globex, it's interesting. Not every night's a good night to be trading in Globex. Sometimes it's a sideways momentum for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is having the patience not to jump in. Um, I do micro scalp. By that, I mean 15 to 20-second trades. Um, but what I'm looking for is percentage of wins. And, $20, $30 starts adding up.
Mm-hmm.
If it's running, I let it run. But, and I guess I'm trained because of the unrealized gains. I had been trained that once I'm in the positive, I'm going to move my stop loss into the positive.
Right.
I've just been so conditioned to that.
Yep.
Because on occasion, I've said, oh, well, I'll just wait. Next thing you know, what was a positive finishes a negative. And I'm like, why didn't I just move it in, take a small win? Those wins do add up. Um, Ticks, I've been trying with those, but again, Globex really teaches you patience as opposed to the New York market. Um, However, right now, what I see is, and I don't trade too much in the New York market right now because of volatility. My stop loss is usually no more than 15 points. I don't give it a lot of space, and I can see
Is
these
that NQ
candles.
or
NQ.
ES?
I'm
NQ.
NQ. Um, and so I've seen candles by far. So for me, it's really important to know direction, but also to be prepared because you get that rogue candle that came out of nowhere, and by that I mean 15 seconds. By the time you realize, there it's a fine line between letting it run or cutting your losses. Um, so I guess that's part of the problem is I overthink it. So I've got 8 different setups, but I don't always look at every one of them, because some indicators react differently, and so really what I'm trying to do, like anything else, is when is this a good indicator to use and when's it not? You know, um, so that's all part of it, as opposed to just putting 20 indicators on one chart. I just have multiple charts with very limited indicators. And so, like I said, I'm just looking for what's my market conditions and then what indicators would suit that best. Um, so
Okay,
it,
thanks.
Yeah, and here's my stab is I have really 3 screens, um, aka 3 monitors. Um, I like one large monitor screen per chart, with the exception this what and are you guys seeing Trading View right now?
yeah. Mhm.
Okay, this is what's on my right hand side. So here's NQ on the left, and that's the smaller one. I just want to I like to see how NQ and ES or MNQ, MES, I like to see that they're trading together because when they're not, that can be a flag. Sometimes the NQ will be ahead and it will kind of point the direction or vice versa. So when they're not synced, they're going to become synced eventually. So they don't um, diverge from each other all that much that often. So that's the reason I will keep MNQ up on the left, and then I'm trading MES, the big one on the right. But I like to kind of keep my eye on what's happening on NQ because when we start seeing a divergence between NQ and ES, it gets my attention. It gets my attention. A lot of times I'm bullish on MES and I see a big red candle come in on NQ, and that will save me some money. I will exit out of ES the first moment that bullish exhaustion presents. I'm like, okay, NQ, give me a little clue there. If I'm bullish on ES, but things are kind of sideways, NQ may come in and give me a big green candle. Well, that increases my confidence that I'm on the right side of the trade in ES. So, that's one monitor, one screen for me. The middle monitor, literally, I can actually get rid of this one here. Um, Middle monitor, I've got Trade and I will have generally ticks. Uh, Middle monitor, I may have anywhere 3 or 5,000. A lot of it depends on the volatility. I like the ticks, and with Trade you've got to like zoom out to make sure, because if you get zoomed in too much, I don't know if you noticed that, Anthony. I didn't mean to, I still want to hear your tick experience,
Yeah.
but your VWAP and stuff may look different. So you got to get in the habit of zooming way out so that you have an identical location of VWAP on Trade as you do on Trading View. This is actually where we started here early because Trading View is always lock solid. Your VWAP, these dotted lines here are the bands. They're always going to be locked in. Where you go into Trade you go 1,000 ticks. Let's see if I can change it here. Like five, if we go to ticks, let's just say even 500 here. We're here in Globex. Not really seeing it here, but relationship to VWAP may be completely different. Larger time frame, VWAP in reality may be up here. So you got to just zoom out, let everything snap back in. You see how things kind of pop there and come back in. However, that's just a nuance of Trade. So make sure you've got your VWAP identical to my right monitor, but I've got a full size screen here where I'm looking at Trade because this is where I execute. I come right in here. It's just one click of the mouse, bam. I've got my ATMs, a lot of different ones. Random is a lot of times the default. Hey, 5 points right there. I got a stop loss that I can manage. I'll drag and drop accordingly, but that at least gets it in there right away. And then on my left monitor, this is generally always at 1,000. And I actually do majority of all my execution. I'm staring at my left monitor. Now, as I shared, I've got Blue Ski usually over here, but I've got all my pretty cool, indicators and my Blue Ski accounts and Apex. These do look the same. I've got the exact same. This is the Tiki. This indicator here, regardless what time frame I'm on. I could be on ticks, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 15-minute. This is going to flatline at the highest price achieved within the first 15 minutes. Here, it's not going to flatline. You see at 5:44:15 Alaska, which is 9:45 Eastern Standard Time, right in here. You see how this started to flatline. So now I have my most important information for my trading decisions being established here, and it's on my middle screen and my left. So, and even within TradingView, regardless of what time frame I'm on, this box is going to print as soon as that first 15 minutes is up, because this is what I'm interested in. Okay. Let me kind of pause there. Did that answer your questions? Between Anthony addressed all the different screens within a screen and what he has, and I kind of focused on, I've got 3 monitors to have the data that I've got, and then how I execute on the different monitors, but my screens are kind of limited relative to Anthony's.
Yeah.
So
well,
a
and
lot
that
of
may
that's
be
going to be
part of that may be some of my problem too, not having enough real estate consistently, because I move around a little bit going to work, and then sometimes I'm watching my phone, and then sometimes I'm back to my setup a little bit, and sometimes I'm on my laptop, and it's hard to have that consistency across the board.
Yes. Yeah, and keeping that bigger picture in mind is I believe, and Anthony's kind of shared with us many times why that's important. He likes that larger, when he's executing on a smaller time frame, how can we increase our probability of its success? Well, when it's in the direction of the larger time frame. So if he's getting in on a 3 minute and it's agreeing with the 15, his probability of success on that 3 minute sniper entry, more precise entry on a smaller time frame, but he's really trading based on the 15, maybe even the 1 hour.
Yeah.
And that's why having I can't quite come in and I use the free version of TradingView right now, but come in and put like 4 monitors, 4 different screens on one monitor. It just, I like big spread out. And this looks like clutter. but it's really not. And again, just to repeat, like this orange line helps me see what Anthony's wanting to see in some of his screens, but what am I doing on the 1 hour? This is a 50 EMA based on what's happening on the 1 hour chart. So regardless of what time frame I'm on, I'm seeing, hey, on an hourly, I'm above my 50 still. Why is that important? Well, case in point today and yesterday, we'll even see it, but here's my 15 minutes. It's identified. Okay. We wick below the 15. This candle, because I know to wait until it closes, this wicked back up. Third candle, it still could not close below any candle below this 15. So I have no entry criteria met here. And this is extremely valuable for those those that are looking to get in a position, around that 1 hour mark, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour. You don't ever want to violate these rules. You've got to wait until a candle closes outside the 15th and you have good follow through. Then you trade down and away. But how many times? Well, it's just a rule, because here we don't have the follow through below these candles that are actually going below the 15, but we do not have any follow through below any candle that closes below the 15. So there was never any entry criteria met, but now VWAP deviation band. But here's my 5 EMA, green 21. What is my criteria? I want to get in that trapping of the bears, but above my 5 EMA as it comes up. I'm interested in getting in here because of the momentum from here, but I know that I've got upper limit. First, if I can make it through VWAP, hallelujah, stay in the trade. If I make it through here, next target's going to be upper limit of 15 minutes. Boom, if I can stay there, the next target's going to be my deviation band above VWAP. Or what did I have in Globex? Okay. So there's a way to utilize some limited hardware with the use of some indicators so that you do have that bigger picture information being painted on maybe one screen. So here I've got my 1 hour depicted by my 50. Here I've got 15 minutes. I don't have to look at my watch. I can be focusing on other things. It's going to paint this very important place, because I will not trade until this box populates. And then I will not trade until I have a candle closing below a candle that closes below that to go short, or I'm setting myself up, hey, is this kind of the liquidation? Big money comes in and validates, hey, bulls are actually going to take charge of this session here. So this was Tuesday. Just even look at Monday. Here's that stayed above this deviation band all the way through the New York session. We never rolled back down towards VWAP. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the call. Just seeing more and more of this year. But here's identical to the day. 15 minutes. This candle closes below the 15 minutes, but this candle here does not follow through. Okay, you get a big bull move here, and I'm learning to not get suckered into these, because if you remember, this was, look at this setup right here, 9 March. Our meeting last week, I told you where I got hammered.
Right, I was going to say that was almost identical to what you said the last time we were talking.
Yep, and
yep, almost identical.
This is 26 February.
Yep.
I recognized it, but I another reason we really spent a lot of time talking about ticks, because I got hammered with this bullish move. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm trapping these bears back up towards VWAP. I got in and I didn't get out here, and I got burnt here, and then I wanted to stay short. She took off up here. I'm like, just shouldn't have traded today. So this is 26 February. Now let's go back to 9 March. That's why we journal.
Yeah.
Because I just recognized it, and what I'm realizing now, the 15-minute range, hey, it still hasn't told you anything. Here's kind of the breakdown below. Here's the retest, but VWAP. VWAP yesterday is another thing that really kind of saved my bacon. Okay, we're above VWAP. So when we come back down here, I wasn't about to go short based on bull bears coming in strong here, like I did back on 26 February. I was convinced I'm below my 15. I'm going to trade down and away. Well, not because of VWAP, but I had beautiful wick here, consolidate here. And yesterday, I'm like, if I can get above this first deviation band, above VWAP, and I'm above my 5 EMA, I'm going to be long up to the upper limit of my 15-minute. Then once we got up here, we kept hugging higher highs along here. And this kind of goes back to where we're bullish above this first deviation band above VWAP. So right in here, market is slower. Volatility has calmed down. What direction is VWAP pointing? First hour, we got to wait. We're not going to see that. But to the point that I wanted to make earlier is at this point here, here's where I got into my first trade above this deviation band with initial target up here. I at least want to go and tease this upper limit at a minimum. Once that part is done, what is the strongest indicator for overall trend? Who's in charge? And a VWAP is actually all this buying pressure here is what's causing a lagging VWAP to point up. So it's lagging. But we got to realize that volume has caused the average price to increase. Bulls are stronger than the bears because VWAP is pointing up. That's just one strong confluence to say, okay, as long as, because again, here's this VWAP, it's just a deviation. So Globex or US market, it doesn't matter. What side of this first deviation band is price remaining? Are we here? We're hugging, we're making higher highs, we're hugging the second deviation band. So as long as I'm hugging the second deviation band, well, this is where my 5 EMA becomes my most valuable decision-making indicator. I'm not above my second deviation band, but it's pointing up. First band, second band, and VWAP, all pointing up. Only go long. Later in the session, it doesn't matter if it's Globex or whatever, 5 EMA is still above my 21. I'm still above this first deviation band. I'm breaking back above 5 EMA. According to my rules, I got to get in again. And I continue to make some higher highs here. Now, here's the nuances. Okay, 50 EMA was up here. These blue lines, and again, this is where TradingView kind of comes in handy, and we've got larger picture stuff, but this is volume profile, and this line was actually populated. And this is a higher value area out, because this yellow, within this yellow is 70% of all the transactions. If you go above this, you're going into where 30% of your volume is for the session that's capturing all these transactions. So here's just a value area based on volume transactions. So again, that's a nuance. That's something we haven't really spent a lot of time talking on. But how many confluences do we have here? I come up, I get a indecision shooting star. First time I actually have a candle break above the second deviation band. So I'm like, that's probably a good place to take some profits off the table. Not interested in shorting, not with this behavior here. And it comes all the way back down pretty quickly. And next thing you know, we're back above 5 EMA and this first deviation band. Everything we just talked about here is rinse and repeat, Globex and US market. Now let's go to well, here's Globex from last night. So through the night, you can kind of see how we're trending down. Purple is the VWAP. Around 11, around midnight Eastern Standard Time. But anyway, big 1,000 transaction candle breaks it back above VWAP right here. And my fast moving EMA, 5 EMA above the 21. And we come back above this deviation band. So if I'm Anthony trading Globex, I'm looking at, hey, for what right here, VWAP is sideways, but we also know price action is telling us, hey, I'm below VWAP, I'm above VWAP, I'm back below VWAP, I'm above VWAP. So we know that it's ranging at this time, and that's consistent with Globex. What we're looking for is, well, when's it no longer going to range? And then what would be our criteria? Well, here, stays above VWAP, bouncing off VWAP, but you can't make newer highs. So you're going to be looking at any entries in this area here. You're probably looking at taking some profits off the table here in Globex. But now she breaks out of this range. You're still above, you're closing above your 5 EMA. And again, we're on ticks. We're not on a 5-minute anymore. I've got my fast moving EMA, which kind of gives me that precision that I'm looking for. I'm safe. And again, Globex, this is not moving all that fast. 1,000 ticks in that first hour of US market, it's out of control. You got to just zoom out. Let all the tick and these candles paint a picture of what price is doing. We're not executing on a 1,000 tick chart, when 5,000 transactions are coming in per second. It can be overwhelming. Did you catch what I said right there? Because ticks is going to throw people off. They move too fast. Absolutely. 1,000 ticks in the first hour of US market is insane. But when you know that you're not going to do anything for at least 30 to 45 minutes, because you need a mature price structure established around that 15-minute upper and lower limit, the ticks paint a beautiful picture and prevent us from getting in too quick. If we're zoomed in, well, it can lure us in. Let's see here. Here's 5:30 this morning. At 1,000 ticks. Look at this is 5:30, 5:32, 5:33, 5:38. So you can see you're just letting them paint. It's like, okay, I'm running into some resistance up here. She rolls over, rejection of VWAP, back down, rejection of VWAP, and I'm just letting them paint. I'm not making any decisions to get in at this point. But now I'm back, and I've got a 15-minute here, but I'm still below VWAP. Let me pause here, Because now, Anthony, I'd love for you to share what you experienced with ticks since our last meeting.
Yeah, so again, trading in Globex. Um, and we did talk about how in ticks, during that time, it might be slow for a candle to actually print. So I actually went smaller in hopes to see the contracts, you know, maybe the volume wasn't there. So just to see that they would print faster. Um, so I do agree it does take a while to get accustomed to that when you're not used to it. Um, so I mean, at one point I went down to like 25. There was one
Really, I
night
was going
I,
to say I've gone down to 75 and 100.
yeah, it was a really slow night, and I said, "Oh, come on, this has got to be a little faster." Um, so the other thing is, in some of the things you're pointing out, look to the left. When I'm looking and I'm starting to see some exhaustion, I look to the left and I say, well, wow, they haven't been at this level in hours. It might be 8 hours ago. And I'm like, okay, what's the likelihood that that's going to continue? And so then I do use RSI and I also use VWAP, and I use that because I see that as a magnet, and I can see where that becomes support, the VWAP. And then if it breaks, now I start to look and say, well, is this now resistance? If now all of a sudden the momentum has changed, I have to be aware of that. So if I'm moving my take profit or stop loss, I will keep that in mind. Where's that in relation? Um, because I'd rather come up a few points short, 5 points short and close out the trade versus trying to be greedy.
Mhm.
And how many times it bounced off? And again, I was, in gains, and now I've lost them all. So, so I have seen that. So I'm still trying to get used to it. I do have a chart that I've got it set up for ticks. Um, again, it's just faster. I just use TradingView, like I said, and then I have a tab for Trade where I take my trades.
Yeah.
Um, and then in relation to screen size, because you can make them smaller, so I can see 8 of them on the screen, and if there's one that I'm looking at on the bottom right-hand side, you can expand it and make it larger. So then that just takes over your entire screen, just that
Yeah.
one setup. Um, So yeah, so like I said, I mean, I'm still working through that, getting used to that idea. Um, let's face it, the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I guess 2 weeks really, a lot of turmoil in the world. And so, what's the confidence, of traders when you're now one thing, Apex gotten away from metals and oil, so you're not able to trade in there, but it's something to look at because again you're looking at sentiment. CPI numbers come out tomorrow, so again you just had unemployment numbers come out since our last time together.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of things going on in the world, and that's definitely affecting the markets. So I'm trying to be aware of that, especially trading Globex, is because now I'm looking at it more worldwide stage versus the New York exchange. Um, and so paying attention to the time difference, makes, can affect change on that in my
It,
trading.
it does. And the world events, you know, they're critical really for us as day traders. Um, just as much as anybody long-term investing. Um, because the world events creates the movement we need to get in, execute our trading plan, which we believe gives us an edge when executed per our rules more times than not. And I say all that because regardless of what's happening in the world, the events give us the movement, but I cannot intraday trade based on the monthly and weekly, and the overall market is bullish, therefore I'm bullish. You know, when we talk ticks, when we talk 5 EMA, we even talk VWAP, in a very bullish market, there's a very large amount of opportunities for short below VWAP. In a very bearish market, which we've had multiple days,
Yeah, I think it's like I said before, it's the time that you're in front of the screen.
yeah, what is our trading plan? What is price doing now? Not what we think it's going to be, should be doing now. What is it
Right.
actually doing now? Kind of hard to see with these volume profile. Let me hide that. But here's our daily on the ES. You know, a lot of resistance up here, bear day. Then boom, she comes back. Here bullish comes in. And then 4 bear days in a row. And then the majority of this is big, large wick here. And then sideways. And then it's just, but yet our market is extremely bullish. We're making all-time highs still. We're still just 1 or 2 days away from potentially hitting an all-time high. But how many, because of world events, because of what's happening in Iran, this has been difficult to really assess. And the only way to trade this type of global market structure is zooming in and executing what is happening during this 2-hour window that Michelle can sit down and trade, regardless if it's mid-morning, middle of the night. What is it doing now? Okay, you've got an upper limit, you've got a lower limit, you've got kind of a VWAP. Maybe let's just focus on this green 21 EMA. Hey, as long as if white's below, 5 EMA's below, and I'm rejected here below VWAP, hey, maybe I want to get in a trade and I'll stay in as long as my candles stay below my 21. Once I hit this outer limit, the second deviation band, hey, if I'm successful when I get down to here, I'm just going to take profits off the table. Because what's the probability of a continued follow through on the second band? And this is a key takeaway. It's very rare. That is generally a place where price is going to consolidate or reverse. When price, again, direction of VWAP is still flat. We're flat through here. It tends to kind of want to move away here, but again, we expect bulls to kind of show up once we get extended away from the primary view. Anyway, point being is below VWAP here, we break above this lower band, it comes back and bounces off of it. And my 5 EMA stays above the green. I'm good. As long as I stay above VWAP, I'm going to stay in this trade. Come back into this area here. It's like, let's take some profits off the table. Maybe I only got from here to here. That's still a 5-point scalp. Comes down and I get to see, again, this is a 100 tick chart. Middle of the night. It's not moving that fast. But I'm able to look left. I'm seeing, oh, look at this nice support or resistance we had here. And can we identify that, hey, old resistance has now become support? Oh, and I'm back above VWAP right here. This right here just becomes a reason to get in. 5 EMA moving above 21. Can I get in right now and have a high probability of at least making it up here to VWAP? The first deviation band above VWAP. But that's the kind of stuff you can, again, this is 100 ticks. This is in the middle of the night, Globex, but it's not moving all that fast. But what is it doing at this moment in time? Here we have no idea if the Iran's Navy is being blown up or if Trump's declaring that the war is essentially about over. What is it doing right now? The news is going to affect everything here, but what is it doing right now? When we're looking at 5, 10-point scalps, we can analyze daily, weekly, all we want. And I'm not shunning them. Don't hear what I'm not saying. But I can have a bullish bias, and my worst days is trying to be bullish when it's not. And if I look back, don't have any good examples here. Either words, I'm looking at pullbacks here, expecting to come back up here, and she comes down here and makes me uncomfortable. And this is a very bullish day. Keeps coming clear back down. Well, now she recovers here. Again, I'm not sure where we're at here, but my point being, we talk a lot about ticks, and I really can't stress the importance of exercising, understanding how these ticks are painting a picture of price behavior between these bands as it pertains to VWAP, and how many 5, 10-point target opportunities exist out there. But we've got to, whenever we sit down to trade, we have to zoom out, understand big picture, what's happening in the news, what's the probability. But when it all comes down to, it's the technicals. What is it doing now? Does this line up with the rules that I have? Here's today. Here's my upper. We could not break this within just the first few minutes. Price coming down. I don't even know. That's just going to show the whole day, essentially. But here's 1,000 ticks from today. And again, back to your first question, Michelle, how many monitors or screens? My left monitor, I'm making all my execution decisions based on a simple chart that looks like this. Keep in mind, I've got all this going on. Where do we look? Oh, that's daily. This is those 8 screens that Anthony has, and I've got it integrated different times. And I'm not actually making a joke. It's a very, very, very common, valid setup. We're trying to fuse as much information we can, because that's where, in time and experience and time in front of the charts, you begin to fuse that information together. So here I'm spending a little bit of time saying, hey, don't worry about all this world events, because what is the chart doing now? That's execution. But it is the 15-minute, it is the world events, it's the overall news that truly give us the confidence. Because what holds me from getting in short, down and away from my opening 15 minutes here? Okay, well, that's learning some rules that, hey, I need to follow through on any candle that's closing below here. Here's really the first candle to close below this red box, and I have no follow through. Okay, there's a rule, it's technical. However, global events, what the market did yesterday, understanding that oil prices have dropped exponentially. Trump is touting victory on every front for the most part. So I've got world events that sets me up to recognize this. So we're fusing it all together. But if this rejects off of VWAP, which it could have, and rolls back over, then I have to do what the chart is actually telling me at that moment. I got rejected at VWAP. Hey, I'm looking at least to get back in to this band here or retest the low of this 15 minutes. It just didn't do that. And I had a fairly strong bias recognizing this behavior, and many days over and over, when I see this behavior, hey, I can at least get back up to here. Oh, and by the way, entry criteria must be my 5 EMA pointing up, momentum crossing up over the 21. So right in here, I get all my confirmation. And so here's where I'm in the trade. So again, it's all, what is the chart doing at that moment in time? This looks simple on a 5-minute time frame. Here's 1,000 ticks. Here's where our 15-minute flat line. So we know that this is our 15-minute time frame. Below VWAP, concern, break it a little bit lower, comes back up here below VWAP, concern. Again, it's just painting a picture. I'm not executing anything yet. Because over on my 5-minute time frame, I've got some major rules that have to be achieved. Some conditions have to be met. And I need this candle, this needs to be a bear candle that follows through here before I can even think about going short. But on my left monitor where I'm executing, hey, I'm still below VWAP. Now I've got higher, it's just painting a picture. They're still moving pretty fast. But now I'm like, oh, I'm above my first deviation band above VWAP. This was identical to yesterday. Oh, and last Friday. Oh, and I think Thursday. 3 days last week. So now I'm bullish, looking for some bullish entries, but I'm like, okay, here's VWAP, a little bit of rejection. We're above. Here's what I'm looking for. And again, we're looking at ticks, but here's the bigger picture. Here's what's happening on my 5 minutes. So it's a green, but my sniper or reason to execute really happens here. When these ticks come in and paint this picture, this bull candle right here, seeing this indecision off the VWAP, that's where I'm long. And I don't have any reason to get out. Staying above this band here. Actually, I think I did get out here because we were flatlining. Is this going to be resistance? Are we going to roll back down into VWAP? So I'm taking I'm in down here, taking some profits off the table in this area. We come back below this deviation band, back up a higher low. Now I'm like, here's a deviation. This is VWAP. Here's the actual VWAP, but the first deviation band, it's proving to hold as support. So able to confidently remain long until we're up in here, we make newer highs. So it's just, what is the market doing now? Today was incredible because if we look at, is this 1014? So this doesn't look as bad as this. But here's the big takeaway. This is pretty quick, comes down easy. bouncing off. I'm a sucker. I'm getting back in. Can I make it back up into this area? Well, we take out these highs. No, it rolls over. Here is my risk. It's not clear down to this lower band. For one, a lower high. And now this deviation band can no longer hold. And once I was above it over here, I was never in a trade below it. Because I took profits here, this could have just kept rolling on down. I'd have been fine. It wasn't until these higher lows come in where I'm like, oh, here's my support again. So here's my risk clear down here. And I'm long, and it happened to make a higher high, taking some profits off the table. Again, long as my 5 EMA staying above my green, I'm happy. I see support again. I'm a sucker. I'm back in. It doesn't take long. Lower a high, lower a high. Oh, it holds the support. I'll stay in one more time. Once it be coming through here, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. What is it actually doing? So this ticks utilizing a deviation form of VWAP with our fast moving EMAs. This right here ensured we did not get sucked into this. This is fast. This happens on the NASDAQ. What, about every 15 minutes, Anthony? But
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to highlight is, the size of ticks, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, is purely going to be personal, but understand in a high volatile market, a 5,000 tick chart might be exactly what you want. I am liking 1,000 because I'm zooming out. I'm seeing price interaction here. Here's my 15-minute. I'm letting it paint a picture. I'm actually leaning back in my chair. I'm not zoomed in looking at the candles, but look how clean. A 5,000 is kind of like a 5-minute. You kind of get a nice double bottom. Again, here's where that VWAP, see how we're below it here? We got to jump. This is where we kind of got to reset stuff. Am I on the right? Oh, this is Globex today. I'm sorry. Let me make sure. That's the 8th. Yesterday morning. Sorry. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, here's the 10th. So here's today. Here's the 5,000 tick chart. So again, 15 minutes. This red line here, we see in both the. Well, it's right here. Through March 10th, 5:35 in the morning. So here's this morning. And a 5,000 tick chart, this moves a lot slower than those 1,000 ticks. But kind of see how clean that is. And a little nervous because VWAP here, rejection below VWAP, but now I'm above my 5 EMA, indecision, price breaks above 5 EMA. This is the reason I'm going to go long. Once this candle, this wick comes up, breaking above here, I'm above VWAP, I'm above my 5. My 5 is above my 21. And you just look for whatever the volatility is, whatever time in the session it is, your ticks can allow you to see the exact same thing just on a different fractal. And that's the biggest takeaway. Globex, safe, slow, but it's no different than the New York session. You just may trade it on a different fractal, a much smaller time frame, and see what you're going to see during the New York session, but you're just going to get, these are 5,000 transactions, each one of these candles.
Well, I have to hand it to you guys that you make it look easy every time we talk.
Well,
And
we're still learning a language. We're rewiring our
Yeah.
brain,
I
and
think so.
it doesn't end, Michelle.
Well, I appreciate your patience and continuing to talk through things, and we'll just keep moving on, I guess.
Amen. Amen.
Well, I'm out of time tonight, so I've got to go on and do some other things for school, but I appreciate that. I'm gonna go back and rethink about my layouts and some other things and take a look at what's happening with the Apex stuff, and I don't know. More thinking this week.
There you go. And Michelle, it's always a joy.
Yep.
I'm so glad that you're able to join us.
No, I appreciate all the time you spend doing this. I've learned a ton and I'm gonna keep learning.
Well, I'm selfish because I do this a lot for me. You don't believe it's not just about me being a good Samaritan. It's part of my training plan, and
Okay, well, I take it all back
I.
then.
But
Well, we're
when
always
no
learning.
one comes in, then it's definitely it's time to move on. But it just
Yeah,
takes a couple like-minded people, because I get a lot of value, by
good.
Anthony's feedback, your questions. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Well,
So
and when you have to talk about any concept, it helps you learn it more yourself. So I'm
absolutely,
sure by you teaching, you're learning too. That's just the nature of teaching.
absolutely.
Well,
All
one thing
right.
you
Well, y'all
learn.
have a blessed week, and I
All right.
hope
Yeah.
things go well for you.
All right, thanks, Michelle.
Bye bye.
Well, I was going to say one thing it teaches you is that everybody has their method that works for them. There's no right or wrong. It's just different, right? What resonates with you? Because we all, we're wired differently, right? Sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. But if it works for you, then it works, you know. Um, and then really the key is just being able to explain how that works. So
Explain
hopefully,
why it
yeah.
works
And then,
for you.
yeah.
Yeah,
And hopefully somebody else sees it and say, oh, well, now that makes sense. Explaining something a different way, even though the outcome's the same, which, obviously is where we're in the positive, that we all want that. But, I think I said before, the minute you think you've got this mastered, it will humble you real quick,
yeah.
right?
And that's
So,
kind of one of the biggest. It would kind of end there, but that's kind of probably
yeah,
the biggest takeaway today is I was actually done around here. Um, no, I take it back. I was done around here, and so I was up working other stuff, and I did see it's like, oh, a little FOMO. I was like, oh, maybe I should have stayed in. I'm like, nope,
yeah,
I'm done. I'm green, crossed everything, and then I seen this, and I'm like, dang, there's 2025. It's back,
yep, yeah,
and so, but I was kind of excited. So I'm like, well, wait a minute here. Um, there was a time where I'm like, hey, here's support. And then it kind of breaks through here. Oh, it's bullish, it's going to come back. And next thing you know, you just gave back everything plus some in
yeah,
one candle here. Um, and this over here highlighting, hey, what are main reasons? You've heard me say a lot of times, hey, when my five, and I got a five is below my green, and I got a follow through of that same color candle, hey, that's a reason to get out.
yeah,
Okay. Well, now that we're talking a lot more, I have the deviation bands or VWAP. I never had these deviation bands turned on until about a month ago. Been really understanding and finding they are extremely powerful. They provide a much tighter framework from a risk, let alone an opportunity. They present opportunity, but work excellent to also define that risk. Um, they work better than the 21 and 5 EMAs.
yeah.
Just but today, because here's 5,000 ticks. Here's the reason we're getting in early in the morning. uh, we stay above this. Here's the big confluence that, hey, I'm going to remain long, is when we come right below that and then stay above it. But what I really want to finish on here is another opportunity to get in. Okay, here's the reason. It's like, okay, lower high. This was potential high of the day type marker on the chart. We see that. Not quite
Yeah.
as clear here on the 5 minute,
Mhm.
but I think all the tick charts had a pretty nice indecision there. Regardless if you're at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000, that kind of came in. And then when we can quickly recognize this lower high, and again, it goes back to the time of session. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I think I'm done scalping. If nothing else, let's just wait and see what happens here. But this deviation band, let alone this wick, see, we're seeing this here. This is
Yeah.
that wick there. Again, a good tight stop in here on a 5 minute time frame. Hey, that's good. And it's also clear here. To me, because I've got all my attention on the VWAP these days,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, the moment I'm breaking through this VWAP, I'm done. And the goal is we should never write out one of these again. That's what I'm getting at. How do we,
Yeah. Right.
NASDAQ or whatever,
Yep.
what's our risk? And do we have a means, regardless what's happening on the global scene, regardless of what our bias is? Because if we're bearish, but it's like, hey, under these conditions, I'm not going to take shorts, even though I might be bearish overall. And I was proven right here, all the way back down. I was proven right, but did you get smoked here? Did you
Yeah.
go short here and then take a paper cut? Go short here and then you freak out because you got a big green candle here. So you take another paper cut. And now you're like, okay, I'm not going to go short here because I'm bouncing off of here. Next thing you know, here it is. This is the move you've been waiting for all morning long.
Yeah.
What is it
All
actually
right.
doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's the quickest way to blow an account is death by 1,000 cuts. You, sometimes, and that's what I'm saying is when I see that happen to myself, I said, oh, I got to look further out. I got to look at the 4 hour chart, and say, clearly I'm not reading the bias, you know. So that's when you have to just stop yourself and just say, today's not your day. You're
yeah,
not in tune with the market. And, you know, so I've done that.
that's maturity. And
Yeah.
and as frustrating and as hard as it is to walk away when you've hit your personal loss for the day, let alone
Yeah.
do Apex DLL.
Yeah.
Um, After a couple hours, when you reset, you're like, I'm actually not in bad shape. I'm glad I quit when I did.
Yep.
Because you can actually recover a daily loss limit. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's probably double what a personal daily loss should be,
Hmm.
my opinion.
No, yeah.
It should never
Hmm.
be with a 25K account, especially with end of day. We'll kind of finish up here, but if you've got a
Yeah.
500 daily loss limit, getting you at the right size, and if you can get up even 100, let alone 200, well, your 150 goal of 5 days is already met at 150. But if you want to grow that account a little bit more, it's like, okay, now that you've got an additional 150, well, now you've got 650 drawdown,
Mhm.
you know, uh, still exercising that patience to get in a regular size trade. And can you make an extra 2 to 300? So that you start out at 1,000 on a 25K, it is nice to say, okay, now I'm at 1,200 and now I'm at 1,225.
Yep.
I'm at 1,235. And kind of then it's like, hey, I'm keeping this. Anyway, we could talk
Yep.
for hours on that.
Sure.
But anyway,
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming out tonight. I know we didn't have a full house, but I think we had a lot of good conversation tonight.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very
Yep.
much. All right,
Me too.
Anthony, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Yep. Take care. All right. Bye.